Here we will see default constraint in SQL Server. The default is a constraint in SQL which allows user to fill a column with default or fixed value. If no value is specified to the column at the time of insertion, then the default value will be added automatically to that column. Syntax for adding default constraint for a single column is create table name, then column name with data type and column name with data type and the default value. For example, create table employee, then employee code field with data type integer, then name and experience with default value as 0. We can add a default constraint with constraint keyword. General syntax is create table name, then column names with data type and the constraint with constraint name and default value. For example, create table employee with fields employee code of type integer, employee name of type varchar, then experience of type integer, and we'll add the constraint default experience which is a constraint name and default value which is 0. We can add a default constraint to existing table also. The syntax for this is alter table name, then add constraint name and default value for the field. For example, alter table employee 3, add constraint with constraint name, default value 0 for the field experience. We can remove the default constraint. General syntax is alter table name and drop constraint name. For example, alter table employee 3, drop constraint, define experience. There are some rules for default constraint. First, use the single quote marks for strings. For example, for the field department varchar, default value is given as an admin in single quote, or you can write just department varchar default string, that is just single quotes. Do not use double quote marks for defining default constraint. For example, department varchar default admin in double quote. It will generate an error. To make the number the default value, enter the number without quotes. For example, amount int default 0. Now we will execute this default constraint query in SQL Server. So first we will use the database. Here we will create table employee 1 with fields employee code of type integer, then employee name of type varchar and experience of type integer and default value 0. We will execute this. It will create a table employee 1. To check this, we will refresh here. Here employee 1 table is created. Now we will insert the record in employee 1. So insert into employee 1. I will specify the fields employee code and employee name, and I will give the values 1, ABC. And if I execute this, it will insert a record. We will check this. Select star from employee. It will add a default value 0 to the field experience. If I add here field and if I specify the value and if I execute, it will add experience as a 3. That is, when the value is not specified, it will add a default value for that field. Now we will add new table, and here we will add constraint at table level with constraint keyword. So create table employee 1. Here we will add employee code of type integer, employee name of type varchar and experience of type integer, and then we will add constraint default experience and default 0, and we will execute this. It will create a table employee 1. Then we will insert the record into the table employee 1 and I will specify values for employee code and employee name, and I will execute this. It will insert a record to table employee 1. To check this, we will use select statement. It will add default 0 value to the field experience, since we have not specified the experience field in the insert into statement. Now we will create a table and then we will add constraint using alter table. So first we will create table emp with fields employee code of type integer, emp name of type varchar and experience of type integer. Then we'll execute this. It will create a table EMP. Here EMP table is created. Now we'll add a constraint for the experience. Now we'll add a constraint for experience as default value 0 to this table using alter table. So alter table EMP, add constraint default experience, then default value 0 for the field experience, and we will execute this. It will add a constraint to this table employee. To check this, we will use insert statement. So insert into EMP for the fields EMP code and EMP name and values for the employee code and employee name. We will execute this and we will use select statement. So select star from EMP and we will execute this. It will add default value 0 to the field experience. Now we will drop this constraint. For this we will use alter table. So alter table EMP drop constraint def experience, and we will execute this. It will drop a default constraint. If we insert record to this table and we will check this using select statement, it will add null value to the table. Since we have not mentioned the default value, it will add null value to the field experience.